You're right. One of the things, Jason, that I've had one of my gripes, because I definitely got many throughout this process, and I definitely understand it's going to be a long process. But people are talking about the Bears like they earned the number one pick. They're talking about the Bears like they are the Carolina Panthers, and they were what, three or two and 14, 2-15, and that's how they got the number one pick. No, they traded, but they are a 7-10 team, in really a minute and a half and being 10-7 if you want to look at those games that they lost in the last minute. So with that and the amount of cap room that they will have, even if they were to trade Justin Fields and get a little bit more there, like what do you think the Bears need to do from a free agency side once the new year league happens, to help them when it comes to the draft, settle on some of those picks that they need to make this team successful?
Well, free agency is tough. It's not like basketball or the other sports and baseball, and you know this, that's not usually where you win, is by winning in free agency. So, I mean, I think Ryan Poles looks at it that way too. I think Ryan Poles is looking for kind of the second tier of priorities. If
Okay.
I'm making my list of what I gotta have if I'm running a team, it's quarterback number one, pass rusher number two, and then there's some positions after that that all pertain to quarterback in some way or another. Left tackle to protect the quarterback, cornerback, it helps you, uh, ruin other teams' quarterbacks. Wide receiver helps your quarterback, and then you kind of get more into that range of, interior offensive line and running backs and linebackers, things like that, safeties. I think that probably that second tier that I mentioned is where they'd be looking in free agency. They've made a lot of good moves. That's one of the reasons why they're in this good position. You're totally right. This is not your typical first pick in the draft roster. This is like a mediocre roster. Let's not overstate what it is. It's just
Right.
mediocre. But usually you don't have a mediocre 500 level team, 500-ish team with these kind of resources, not just picking one, but also picking nine. I don't know if I feel like people are forgetting they also have the number nine pick, which is a really
Right.
big deal for them.
Yeah.
Um, but they're missing so many things. Like they've made all these moves that either they're really smart. Brian Poles has drafted so well. And I hated the Roquan Smith move at the time, but Tremaine Edmonds for a lot less money and getting a draft pick and like, all right, I concede you got that one right. Like that worked out. That worked out well for Baltimore too. They got the star of their defense, but I don't know that would have been. I don't know Roquan would have had the same effect here. I'm getting off topic. It's like if you're looking at your house and you do all these great things to your house, like you retile the bathroom or you put in a new sink here or you paint the walls here. You do all these nice little things. You put in new landscaping outside, but then you got like a giant hole in the middle of your floor, or you don't have electricity or something. Like you're missing the big thing. You're making all these little moves that aren't going to matter unless you get the big moves right, unless you get quarterback, pass rusher, and some things that are really closely tied to basically your quarterback thriving and you wrecking the other team's quarterback. It's like that's the biggest thing to me is they need to not only like Ryan Poles has so many things in front of him that he needs to nail right now. I don't know that free agency is necessarily in that category for me, but need to nail the number one pick, which is meaning in part you got to get your quarterback situation right. You got to nail that number 9 pick. When you're picking ninth in the draft, you're expecting to pick a guy that like you're going to hang his jersey in your stadium somewhere. And then you
Yep.
got to nail the Justin Fields trade. You got to get that right. You got to try to get whatever you can. And I think if he can get a second round pick for Justin Fields earlier in the second round, the better, obviously. But that's a pretty good success.
That paper on display, I haters old news. Money on the other line, so I'm not gonna hold you. Money on the other line, so I'm not gonna